The house was silent except for my daughter's whisper on the phone. "Just get the papers signed before he catches on," she said, voice low, urgent. I froze outside her door. "What if he fights it?" a man's voice answered, my son-in-law, Ryan. "He's 61, not stupid," she snapped. "But we'll say he's confused." The doctor owes me a favor. Silence. Just my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then her voice again, colder this time. "Once the house is in our name, we send him to that assisted living place outside town. Out of sight, out of mind." I stepped back into the shadows of my own hallway, in my own home, and felt something inside me shut like a door closing forever. They wanted to erase me. They didn't know what I'd built before they were even born. Welcome back to Dad's Cruel Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, because every villain in this story got exactly what they deserved. Be sure to subscribe and drop a comment. What would you have done in my place? My name is Frank Miller. I'm 61 years old. I raised my daughter Ashley alone after her mother died. I was 34 then, an accountant with a modest pension and a small house outside Columbus, Ohio, and a baby girl who needed a father more than a career. I gave up promotions. I gave up remarriage offers. I gave up sleep for 18 years so she'd never feel the absence of a mother. I never once told her the truth about what I actually did during those years, or what I quietly built while she thought I was just an accountant. That silence was about to become my only weapon. Ashley married Ryan 4 years ago. I paid for the wedding every dollar, no complaints. When they struggled to start their contracting business, I sold my late wife's jewelry and handed them the cash without a single condition attached. "You'll never have to worry, Dad," Ashley told me then, holding my hand at the dinner table. "We'll take care of you when you're old." I believed her. That's the humiliating part, I actually believed her. 6 months ago, Ryan's business collapsed under bad debt. That's when the visits started. Ashley began coming over every Sunday, suddenly affectionate, suddenly interested in my health, my medications, my daily routine. She'd ask questions that felt like check-ins but were actually reconnaissance. "Dad, who has power of attorney if something happens to you? Dad, have you made a will? Dad, don't you think this house is too big for just you?" I answered honestly every time, because I still saw my daughter, not a predator circling a wounded animal. I didn't yet know about the family doctor she'd bribed, or the psychiatric evaluation she was quietly arranging behind my back, or the buyer Ryan had already lined up for my house. I found out by accident, a phone left on the kitchen counter, a notification I wasn't supposed to see. One name stopped my heart: Sunrise Senior Living admission confirmed, resident, Frank Miller. They'd already booked my room before asking my permission. I didn't confront them that night. Rage is a luxury the powerless can afford. I couldn't, because I wasn't as powerless as they assumed. What Ashley never knew was this: before I became just an accountant at a small firm, I spent 6 years doing forensic audits, investigating corporate fraud for a private company. I know exactly how paper trails work. I know exactly how easily a signature can be forged, and exactly how a forged signature gets exposed in court. I also never told her about the trust. 12 years ago, after a colleague's family destroyed itself over inheritance, I quietly transferred the house's actual ownership into a private family trust with myself as sole trustee, and an ironclad clause that no property could be sold, mortgaged, or transferred without a court-verified, video-recorded consent process. My name stayed on utility bills and the mailbox. Nothing else. Ashley didn't own a house that could be sold out from under me. She owned an illusion. But illusions can be dangerous too, because a woman convinced she's about to inherit a house will do things a woman with nothing to gain never would. That night, I set up a small recorder in the living room, disguised as a phone charger. If they wanted to build a case that I was mentally incompetent, I was going to build a case that they were criminals. I didn't sleep. I planned. The following Sunday, Ashley arrived with a stranger, a soft-spoken woman she introduced as just a friend. "Dad, she's a doctor. She wanted to check your blood pressure." I let the doctor examine me. I answered every question calmly, correctly, sharply. Dates, names, math problems she disguised as casual conversation. I watched her face fall slightly with each accurate answer. After she left, I heard Ashley on the porch, hissing into her phone. He's too sharp today. We need a different report. Just write what we discussed: early-stage dementia, memory lapses, poor decision-making. He'll never read the fine print. My recorder caught every word. That evening, Ryan visited alone, sat across from me with forced warmth, and slid a folder across the table. Dad, just some paperwork for your insurance update. Purely routine. I read it slowly. Buried on page 4, in dense legal language, was a clause transferring power of attorney over all real property to Ashley, effective immediately upon signature. I looked up at him and smiled, the first genuine smile I'd given either of them in weeks. Of course, son, I said. Let me get my reading glasses and my own lawyer to review it first. Standard practice, you understand. His face went pale. He hadn't expected resistance. He'd expected a confused old man. He was about to learn how wrong he. Word must have traveled fast, because 2 days later, Ashley showed up without warning, tears already streaming, theatrical, rehearsed. Dad, why are you being so difficult? We're trying to protect you. People are saying you've been forgetting things, missing your medicine, leaving the stove on. Don't you trust your own daughter? I studied her face, searching for even a flicker of the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest. I found nothing but calculation. I trust facts, I said quietly. Show me one time I forgot my medicine. One time I left the stove on. Name it. She couldn't. Because it had never happened. It was a script, not a memory. That night I called an old friend, Judge Retired Harold Bennett, a man I'd helped years ago during a fraud investigation that saved his brother's company. He owed me, and he was still respected enough to open doors quietly. Send me everything you have, he said. Recordings, documents, the trust papers, the fake medical report if you can get a copy. We'll handle this the right way, legally, permanently, publicly if needed. For the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. Not because the danger had passed, but because I finally had a plan sharper than theirs. They thought they were hunting a confused old man. They were about to discover they were the prey. I played my part perfectly over the next week, soft, agreeable, slightly forgetful when it suited me. I let Ashley believe her plan was working. I even signed a document she brought, a decoy, prepared by my lawyer, that looked identical to her power of attorney clause but was legally void, missing one critical notary stamp that only a trained eye would notice. She left that evening glowing with premature victory. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed a quiet application, a request for court-ordered verification of my mental competency, conducted by an independent, court-appointed panel, not the bribed Dr. Ashley had arranged, but a neutral one, on record, with video evidence. I also handed over the recordings. Every hissed phone call. Every rehearsed lie. Every mention of the assisted living room booked before I'd even been asked. 2 weeks later, the official evaluation results arrived, fully competent, sharp memory, no cognitive impairment whatsoever, the exact opposite of what Ashley's private doctor had signed. The bribed doctor's report was now evidence of fraud, not protection. Judge Bennett called me that night, voice grave but satisfied. Frank, we have enough now. Falsified medical documents, attempted asset fraud through forged power of attorney, and premeditated elder abandonment. This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is a criminal case. I looked at the family photo on my wall, Ashley at 6 years old, gap-toothed, holding my hand at the park. That little girl was gone. Only the fraud remained. I invited them to dinner. Told them I'd reconsidered and wanted to discuss the house peacefully, as a family, one last time. They arrived smiling, victorious, already discussing renovation plans within earshot of me at the door. I sat them down at the same table where I'd fed Ashley since she was a baby, and I placed 3 folders in front of them. Before we talk about the house, I said calmly, I want you to hear something. I played the recording. Ashley's voice filled the room, hissing, cold, plotting. He's too sharp today, just write what we discussed, he'll never read the fine print. Ryan's fork clattered onto his plate. Ashley's face drained of all color. That's taken out of context, she stammered. There's no context that explains booking a senior living room before asking your father's permission, I said, sliding the confirmation printout across the table. Or bribing a doctor for a false dementia diagnosis. Or forging power of attorney documents. Ryan stood up, knocking his chair backward. You tricked us. No, I said, my voice finally rising, years of swallowed anger surfacing at last. You tried to steal from a man who spent 18 years feeding, clothing, and educating you both out of love. I simply refused to be stolen from quietly. Ashley tried one last desperate move to tears, apologies, promises to make it right, begging me to destroy the recordings, to forget the whole thing, framing it as just financial stress that pushed them to bad decisions. I let her finish. Then I asked one question. When exactly did you book that senior living room, Ashley? Before or after Ryan's business failed? Silence. Before, I answered for her. 3 weeks before Ryan ever came to me asking for a loan. You didn't panic into this. You planned it. Judge Bennett's contact had already filed the formal complaint that morning, forged legal documents, attempted fraud against a senior citizen, and falsified medical records submitted by a bribed physician who was now facing his own licensing investigation. Police visited their house 2 days later. Ryan was taken in for questioning first. The fake power of attorney forgery bore his signature as witness. Ashley was summoned separately once the falsified medical report was formally traced back to payment records from her own bank account, a transfer she'd foolishly made directly instead of using cash. Word spread through our extended family and neighborhood within days. The same relatives who used to praise Ashley as such a devoted daughter now crossed the street to avoid Ryan's mother. I felt no satisfaction watching police cars outside my daughter's house. Only a hollow, quiet grief for the daughter I'd raised, who no longer existed. The court proceedings moved faster than any of us expected. Evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, recorded in Ashley's and Ryan's own voices. Ashley called me 11 times in 1 week. I let every call go to voicemail. Her final message was raw, stripped of all performance. Dad, please. I'm your only daughter. Family is family. Please make this go away. I listened to it twice, then saved it, not out of sentiment, but because I finally understood something clearly. Family, to her, was only a word she used when it benefited her. It disappeared the moment it required sacrifice, and reappeared the moment she needed rescuing. I didn't call back. The judge, reviewing the falsified medical evaluation, the forged power of attorney, and the recorded conversations, granted an emergency protective order barring Ashley and Ryan from my property and from any financial dealings on my behalf, pending the criminal trial. My lawyer also filed a civil suit for the full amount I'd given them over the years, the wedding, the business loan, every cent now framed correctly as exploitation, not generosity. The criminal trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution played the recordings in open court. I watched jurors' faces shift from disbelief to disgust as they heard Ashley plan my disposal like a logistics problem. Ryan's lawyer tried to paint him as merely following his wife's lead. It didn't matter. His signature was on the forged document. His voice was on the recording, agreeing to send me away. Ashley's lawyer tried to argue financial desperation, emotional distress, a daughter overwhelmed by caregiving fears. The judge wasn't moved. You didn't fear for your father's safety, he said, reading from his notes. You feared for your inheritance timeline. Both were convicted, Ryan on forgery and fraud charges, Ashley on fraud and attempted exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Neither received prison time longer than 18 months, suspended sentences with probation, given no prior record. But the civil judgment was absolute, full repayment, with interest, and a permanent restraining order keeping them off my property. The bribed doctor lost her medical license entirely, facing her own separate criminal charges for falsifying records. I sat in the back of the courtroom the final day, and Ashley turned once, searching for my face. I met her eyes without anger, without triumph. Just distance. The kind that can't be closed by an apology. 6 months later, I sold the contracting business assets Ryan had put up as partial repayment, cleared the last of the debt, and used part of the settlement to finally do something for myself. I traveled to Colorado, hiked trails I'd always wanted to see, ate dinner alone in restaurants without guilt. I heard through relatives that Ashley and Ryan had separated. Turns out desperation and greed don't survive well once the plan collapses. He blamed her. She blamed him. Neither blamed themselves. I updated my trust one final time, removing Ashley as a beneficiary entirely, redirecting everything to a scholarship fund for young single parents raising kids alone, the way I once had. Something good, built from something ugly. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because legacy should reward people who actually show up, not people who calculate your expiration date. Ashley tried to reach out once more, an email this time, longer, more careful, mentioning therapy, mentioning growth, mentioning regret. I read it once. I didn't delete it. But I didn't answer it either. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some are meant to stay burned, as a lesson to anyone else who might try crossing them uninvited. People ask me sometimes if I regret how far I took it, the recordings, the court case, cutting my only daughter out of everything I own. I don't. I gave Ashley 18 years of sacrifice before she ever gave me a single reason to doubt her. She repaid that sacrifice by pricing my life against a house deed and losing patience with my heartbeat. Some parents spend their final years being cherished by the children they raised. I spent mine defending myself against one. The difference between us was simple. She wanted my absence. I chose my own peace instead. And peace, it turns out, doesn't require forgiveness, only distance, and the courage to finally choose yourself, at 61 years old, for the very first time in your life. Every villain in this story got exactly what they deserved. Including the one who once called me Dad.